lionized mindset. It is said that performance and performance alone dictates the predator in any food chain. Therefore, a lionized mindset strives to be self-initiated, dynamic, cool under pressure, as well as stylish and debonair. So sit back as I roll out the red carpet, detailing and lacing you up through a series of 7 videos explaining 7 mental laws on establishing a foundation on attaining a lionized mindset. Yeah, what's good, family? Hey, I'ma let this joint rock for a moment.
I shouldn't be standing with a heart that's so heavy. I shouldn't be up with all the weight that I carry. Don't know if it's right, but I'm sticking with you. You're my only vice, I'm dependent on you. Love's for the wicked, I know this shit too well. I talk, you don't listen, still I'm under your spell. I think I'm addicted to feeling bad as hell. I can just let you go. You're the one I wait for, even though I hate. Every time you leave me to my fate. You're the one I'll stay for, though I wanna go. Find somebody better, better for my soul. Better for my soul, yeah, better for my soul. Find somebody better, better for my soul.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Checkmate. Welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Gameology. I'm your host, Neil K. Marcellus. Yeah, family, I had to let that joint rock for a moment. Nevertheless, let me set the tone for this particular episode with a movie clip. Oh, and by the way, this episode is the 6th law out of a series of 7 on lionizing your mindset. But let me set the tone for this episode with this movie clip that comes from a classic, and it will set the tone and rhythm of what I will be discussing. Let's jump into it.
I spend my life trying not to be careless. Women and children can be careless, but not men.
That warning and cautionary tidbit of knowledge you just heard in that Godfather clip, where the character, the protagonist, Don Vito Corleone, the Mafia Don, advised his son that women and children can afford to be careless, but not men. This pearl of wisdom is embedded within the game of chess, and is one of the many reasons why I use the tenets of the game of chess to shed light upon the principles of game. Because chess is a process where you go about managing errors. Also, on the opposite end of this process, it educates the chess player on how to recognize errors within their opponent's game and utilize these errors in order to put their king into check. Peep game, check out this image. See how the lighter shade player has moved their queen into a powerful and key position, indicated by the yellow arrow. This move, this particular tactic I'm showcasing, where the lighter shade player has positioned their queen to take advantage of a mishap that their opponent has failed to realize, is an example of carelessness upon the chessboard. This lighter shade player and his queen is now in a key position to threaten and also remove one of these 2 darker shade chess pieces from the chessboard, indicated by the red arrow. This tactic works best when executed by a chess piece with a lot of versatility. And this is why within the philosophy of gameology, a practitioner must develop mind over circumstances capabilities. A candidate for this particular tactic, other than the queen, would be a rook, or basically a bishop. Once more, the game of chess is a process of managing errors. And like that movie clip at the beginning of this video said, men cannot be careless. This is why, in order to be a thorough gameologist, you must develop mental dexterity, the ability to be versatile. In applying this particular mindset that was exhibited in this example upon the chessboard on the chessboard of life, it requires for you to understand 2 articles of truth. But first, let me give the definition of this 6th law on lionizing your mindset, which is referred to as your catching hand. Your catching hand was a philosophy that OGs taught men on how to go about attaining a positive relationship when it comes to women, regardless if the relationship was casual or long term. This knowledge of how to attain this particular objective is embedded within this 6th law of lionizing your mindset, your catching hand. The definition of a catching hand, it is a man who has the ability and skill to mingle, meet, and greet, but equally and just as important is his ability and skill on establishing a presence and a swag that allows him, by the same token, to be met. Oh, grasshopper, I'm afraid it is. Now, doubling back to those 2 articles of truth I've mentioned a moment ago, that provides the versatility and dexterity in order for one to operate on the chessboard of life, and in particular when it comes to relationships with females. These 2 factors I'm about to explain is required if you are going to utilize this 6th law on lionizing your mindset, which is your catching hand. These 2 articles of truth are called and known as the concepts of activity cost and playtime cost. Pretty much, I'm speaking to having a cost-benefit analysis mindset when engaging into relationships with females, regardless if it's casual or long-term. Activity cost basically is what it takes in order to knock the ball over the bleachers and out the ballpark when it comes to accomplishing outcomes within your relationship goals. It speaks to your resources like your energy and your time. Because if they are stretched too thin, then you run the probability of becoming careless. Playtime costs are the things you cannot do once you set things into motion. It's all about being concise. So for instance, if you decide to enroll into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes, you cannot simultaneously enroll into Wing Chun Kung Fu classes as well, because we're talking about 2 different kinds of martial arts. In order for you to be efficient at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's going to require a quality length of time on the mat, taking your bumps and bruises. So it goes back to this cost-benefit analysis mindset that you need to acquire if you're going to have a catching hand that is efficient. The stone cold reality when it comes to relationships is that it isn't as simple as a man and a woman just having a conversation. Oh no, grasshopper, it's more dynamic than that. Because in all actuality, there are 4 individuals that are involved when a man and a woman engage into dialogue with one another. Now, peep game. Any time when a man and a woman engages into any type of discussion, it's not simply 2 individuals having a conversation. No, we're talking about incorrect arithmetic right there. Let me unpack this conundrum and make it more clear and concise for you. When a man and a woman swap back and forth ideas and opinions, there are 4 individuals involved and not simply 2. So for instance, whenever you are talking to females, regardless if it's casual or long term, looking at getting into a relationship, number one, you have her immediate intent that is present. And number two, you have your immediate intent, which is also present. Then, this is where it gets interesting. Representing you, the man, is what is called your shadow queen, operating within the background of your psyche. And for her, the female that you're talking to, she has what is called a shadow king, operating within her background of her psyche as well. Therefore, it is always 4 individuals involved within a conversation, and not 2. Yep, truth hits hard like Mike Tyson, and is most definitely more interesting and intriguing than fiction. Also, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It would definitely do me a solid. Now allow me to further unpack this head scratcher of a revelation surrounding this topic of male and female relationship dynamics. Also, it will shed light back upon this concept of the shadow queen, crucial to a proper understanding of how this shadow queen plays this role among the necessary drama of male and female relationship dynamics is an insight into 2 executive mental functions, which is embedded into the psychology of both the male and the female as well. The first of these executive mental functions is referred to as your intentional objective awareness, and the second one is referred to as your unintentional subjective awareness. Both are massive and powerful capabilities, but like I just stated, they are both intrinsic to the male and to the female as well. But this second executive mental function, referred to as your unintentional subjective awareness, is what females lean towards the most because of biological reasons. This book, Brain Sex, The Real Difference Between Men and Women, by Dr. Ann Moyer and David Jessel, goes and reinforces this fact I just stated. So, this second executive mental function, referred to as your unintentional subjective awareness, this is your shadow queen. And from a street perspective, it's also referred to as your X factor. Now, let me start explaining how this shadow queen makes its presence known within the context of a man's psyche. Also, when I mention the term psyche, just equate that to what you give significance to. Because from day one, you're constantly giving significance to things. From day one since you was born. Going back to the concept of chess and how the mysteries of life is embedded within its contents. When you look at certain pieces upon the chessboard, they are positioned on certain color squares. This speaks to the power of opposites. Our mind functions and operates by comparing opposites, such as hot and cold, high and low, greater and lesser. Along with this process and identification, this is how a man comes to associate with this shadow queen. Check out this image that I'm showing you. There's a group of cells embedded into a portion of your brain referred to as your globulus pallidus. Basically what these cells do, they help you to mimic behavior. Identification is defined as a psychological procedure in which we integrate a characteristic of another and transform ourselves either totally or partially based upon that identification. Peep game. A man's first and initial identification is with his mother. And this is not to diminish what your mother have given you or your father. This just to point out a revelation and an insight that is known by many thorough gameologists. And that is, a man is basically born 3 times. First, he is born of his mother. Secondly, he is born of his father. And finally, he is born based upon the accumulation and quality of knowledge of self. This is gameology. Now, your shadow queen, as well as a female shadow king, has two components to it. One component, or you can equate one of these components to a mirror, where you reflect what you have been programmed with. Going back to the concept of how you mimicking certain movements and certain behavior. Anytime when a man has irrational behaviors when it comes to relationship dynamics, basically it's coming from this portion of his shadow queen. On the same token, anytime when a female have irrational opinions and irrational ideas, it's coming from this portion of her shadow king. And this explains why the shadow queen as well as the king has a ominous, menacing look to it, because it's talking about this shadow, the shadow that has no conscious intent. It only can lash out when it doesn't get its way, so to speak, or it stumbles trying to complete a path in achieving a particular outcome. In order for you to fulfill that third birth that I mentioned earlier, you need to utilize this second component. Instead of just becoming a mirror, you need to become a powerful lens, where you become front sight focused, using your conscious intent and harness the power of this shadow queen and create a path that is particular to your circumstances. This allows you to fortify yourself so you won't become careless. And do not equate being careless with not making mistakes. Making mistakes is a necessity upon the chessboard of life. The knowledge of this sixth law of lionizing your mindset, your catching hand, is very vast, because your shadow queen as well as a female shadow king has 4 stages to it when it comes to its development and mastery. And I will be doing several shows going into this content. But like I said on several episodes of this Lionizing Your Mindset series, each law do not work in isolation. So in order for you to start developing this power of this shadow queen, you need to implement those 7 laws, or the laws from law 1 up until now. Just like I stated earlier, anytime when a man and a woman engage into relationships dynamics, there need to be 4 individuals that is present. When a man gains insight into this 6th law of lionizing their mindset, their catching hand, they will have vast understanding and knowledge of their shadow queen. In doing so, he will have vast understanding of a female's shadow king. So there will be 4 individuals present instead of just 2. In conclusion, this 6th law of lionizing your mindset, the catching hand, is all about equipping you with the knowledge and understanding so that you would never allow an unworthy woman to become your priority, while allowing yourself to become her option. Checkmate. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next episode.